Tom, what is on your radar tonight?
Well, what's on the radar is the Fed, but that hasn't changed much in the last year. We'll talk a little bit about that in a few minutes, I know. There are three takeaways, which I can go into now, unless you want to kick it over a little bit.
Go ahead.
All right. So three takeaways from today. First, the Fed has reached the end of its hiking cycle. That was actually not a sure thing as recently as this morning, but it is a lockdown now. I've never seen the Fed be this specific. Secondly, absent a financial crisis, there's no rate cut plan for March, and we're not hoping for a crisis either. But it's probably May. But this is a cycle that's going to be pushed off. And the third takeaway is, and we can talk a bit about this later, but when Jay Powell starts telling the same story 18 months in a row, you really got to start listening, because thus far nobody's been listening. So we're at the point now where he has been telling us for 18 months that he's not going to make the same mistake that the Fed made in 1980 when they started cutting rates in front of the Carter-Reagan election. I think we've talked about this in the past, Jane. He's a student of history. He holds former Fed Chair Volcker in high regard, but he has come back repeatedly to that question, which is that Volcker made a mistake by cutting rates in May of 1980, and he's not going to do it. And so all he's doing is following through on a story he's been saying for 18 months, and the market is actually starting to clue in.
We'll talk more about that, but quickly, 3 cuts this year, you think, or now you're down to maybe 2?
I think it'll probably be a full point, so call it 4 quarter-point cuts. It might come in 50 basis points the first time, but probably 100 basis points all in. It's not going to be the 175 that the market's been talking about. This is going to be a slower cut, a slower move towards lower rates. And again, part of that is that he's very concerned that, like a balloon held underwater, if you move away from a fairly tight monetary policy too quickly, it's going to pop back up. And he's really concerned about whether services inflation, goods inflation has already come down. That's not the issue. It's really the services inflation in the labor market.
Okay, so when I get back to you, I want to ask you what he does if Trump is reelected. Okay, hold that thought. With us also tonight is Sandra Velasquez, founder of Nopalera, which I hope you all got. Went on Shark Tank, got 2 offers, rejected them both, refused to negotiate. Mark Cuban said he'd never seen anything like it. Sandra, bienvenidos. Do you regret that decision?
Jane, no regrets whatsoever, because after Shark Tank, after I turned down those 2 offers, I went on to raise a lot more money for a lot less equity. So it all worked out for me.
And 2023 revenues, and what are they in 2024?
2023 revenues were 3 times what they were the previous year, so we hit our 2 million goal of revenues for 2023, and this year projected to do about 4.5.
Profitable?
By the end of the year, hopefully. If everything goes well, but hoping to learn some here, what's going to happen in our economy, in our world, because that will also dictate.
We will talk more later about what it's like to be on Shark Tank, because I've interviewed people before. I know it's crazy. And also, where you were able to raise and how do you access capital now? Thank you, Sandra. And later this hour, we'll get a few questions from Peter Ban, VP of Global Operations for Meta. The stock was down today because your boss was on Capitol Hill, which is never a good thing for a tech company, especially social media. But Meta shares are double what they were from their 52-week low. Are you the kind of guy, Peter, who checks the stock price every day?
I didn't even know the stock was down. I guess I might have to go look. I'm more the guy who checks his refrigerator every few minutes, not my stock portfolio. But
we will talk later, because I want to ask you some questions about AI. But let's dive into it. This first part of our chat with Tom again. We are in an election year. I know you've been studying that. Unless Haley pulls off a miracle, it's going to be Biden and Trump again. If Trump wins, Powell has put up with pressure from him before. What happens, and who in the heck is going to be Treasury Secretary?
That's a good question. After what we saw in the first Trump administration, I think there's going to be a little bit of hesitancy for somebody to jump into that very high-profile role. It's such a prestigious position. I'm sure he'll get somebody competent if indeed he does win.
I walked away from multiple Shark offers because I had a ceiling in mind and I just didn't want to budge. But just like the nopal, which is resilient and ancient, has always been here and always will be, so will we. And the future is bright for Nopalera.
No wiggle room's crazy. That's a first.
You negotiate. The show is based on negotiation.
Yeah, but for her, it was all about self-worth, and she stuck to it.
Deal makers, it's time to rethink everything. Think about the one place where it all makes sense. It's time to think DataSite Cloud, your complete M&A platform.